We begin this news hour in the Ukrainian capital, where at least 4 people are dead and 16 others injured in drone strikes. Officials say Kyiv was struck several times in an early morning attack by Russian forces using kamikaze drones. Ukraine says the Iranian-made explosive drones hit the capital's Shevchenko district, the same area that was targeted exactly a week ago. The strikes have not been confined to Kyiv. Ukraine's prime minister said there were also attacks on critical infrastructure in 3 other regions, cutting off electricity to hundreds of villages across the country. Arise chief correspondent John Cookson reports.
A drone strike in downtown Kiev. Security services tried to shoot it down, but in vain. The use of drones is a further escalation in this near 8-month-long conflict. What's being targeted is hard to determine. The mayor's office in the capital says residential and non-residential buildings have been hit. Railway officials say explosions were seen close to Kiev's main station. It's the first time during the war that the center of Kiev has been directly targeted.
We have received reports from our colleagues on the ground about these drone attacks, and it is absolutely important that civilians are not targeted. This is very difficult in densely populated urban areas. So it's clear that the respect for international law, for international human rights law, for international humanitarian law is absolutely critical. So the big call is to de-escalate and to find ways and means to respect international law.
Despite death and destruction on the streets of the capital and other major cities, President Zelensky says Ukraine's spirit will not be broken, and city workers have become adept at repairing the damage to buildings and infrastructure.
I think people just carry on as normal as much as they can. Like you said, the missile on Monday, one of them hit just up the road there, but the traffic's already going. In the park here, there's people busking, buying coffees. You can buy food and sit and drink a coffee in the park. And there was an air raid siren just about 10 minutes ago. As soon as that's over, people just come out from the metro or the shelters and they just carry on with what they're doing. It's all you can do, really.
The Ukrainians insist they will win this war, but how long it will take is anyone's guess. John Cookson, Arise News.
Well, the European Union's top diplomat, Josep Borrell, says the bloc is looking for concrete evidence of any Iranian involvement in Russia's war on Ukraine. But speaking at a meeting in Luxembourg, several EU foreign ministers have already indicated they're certain Iran has been supplying Russia with drones. Iran denies any involvement.
Iranian drones are used apparently to attack in the middle of Kiev. This is an atrocity we need to address. We see that Iran itself, the leadership in Iran, are cracking down on its own population in a way that is inhuman and against all norms and rules, and we should react strongly to that.
Well, for more, we can now speak to Arise chief correspondent John Cookson, who is monitoring developments from London. Good to see you, John. Just bring us up to date with the latest casualty figures from these kamikaze drone attacks.
It seems to be 7 across the country, Charles, although that figure could update overnight. A number of people seriously injured. Tragically, a pregnant woman killed today in Kiev, where at least 4 people have died in these drone attacks, which were launched just at breakfast time this morning in Kiev and elsewhere, and not only in residential areas, but as you said in the intro, in areas where they might impact on power plants and water plants. There's no military advantage for the Russians using these drones. It's purely to grind the population down, to throw terror into the population, very much like Adolf Hitler did in early 1945, sent doodlebugs over to London. There was no specific target. These things just land anywhere and kill people, and it's to terrorize the population, Charles.
So clearly a grim start to the week for the people of Ukraine, John. We've heard a lot about residential buildings being attacked. Is it possible to determine broadly what is being targeted by the Russians?
Not really. As far as the drones are concerned, they just seem to be fired indiscriminately towards the centres of population. And, from the Russian point of view, they're quite happy, in quotes, to take out a block of flats. These drones they have bought from Iran off the shelf, the Russians, that is. The Iranians have been supplying them in recent years to their proxy forces, the Houthis in Yemen. And even now, Charles, even yesterday, the Iranians were using these drones to bomb Kurdish positions in northeastern Iraq. They are a very effective tool to, as I say, cause terror and destruction on a minor scale. They cost around $20,000 each. This compared with, say, a cruise missile, which is $1 million to $30 million. A swarm of 28 drones, for example, can cause a huge impact in a city like Kyiv.
And John, how are the Ukrainian authorities reacting to this new onslaught?
Well, Zelensky, of course, says that this will not defeat the Ukrainians. The spirit is there, but if these kinds of attacks go on, and I'm sure they will, it will have an impact on the population, and internationally, it's brought condemnation. We saw in that last soundbite from the European Union foreign ministers. They are considering fresh sanctions against Iran, against Russia, and against Iran for supplying Russia with these drones. The Iranians are vehemently denying that they've supplied Russia with drones, but the reason why they're doing that is because technically, if they have, and it's proved that they have, they're in breach of the 2015 nuclear deal, which forbids them to engage in operations using ballistic missiles, and in theory, that can cause a snapback of sanctions against Iran that were previously lifted. So that's why the Iranians are denying that they're supplying the Russians with these drones. And also the Russians could say, yeah, they are new to us, but we've been adapting them. The drones that the Iranians supply have a range of about 200 kilometers. The Russians have been adapting these drones to give them a range of around 400 kilometers. So perhaps the Russians could argue that the adapted drones aren't the ones that the Iranians supplied in the first place.
John, thanks very much indeed. John Cookson, Arise chief correspondent, talking to me there from London.